What we're going to cover today is really straightforward. I'm going to break it down into three parts. The first thing I need to explain to you is what the morph feature actually is, because it's all good and well me getting very excited about it, but if you don't know what it is, then what's the point of this training? So I'm going to show you that in just a second, and I'm also going to show you some really amazing examples of morph. So in the first session, the first LinkedIn live session I did, we talked about the zooming feature, and I showed you some amazing examples of that our team have created. I'm going to do the same thing here with the morph feature. And then towards the end of the session, this is where we'll spend most of our time today. I'm going to show you the 4 steps for using the morph feature. They are very simple, but if you go into PowerPoint and just try and use morph without really understanding these steps, it can be a bit of a mind melt. It can really hurt your brain a little bit. So I'm going to break it down really simply, and we're going to kind of build up from there and get more and more advanced. Hopefully as well, most of you would have received this presentation that I'm using in the session today as a downloadable file from me yesterday via LinkedIn. If you didn't have a chance to download it, don't panic. That's absolutely fine. But maybe download it after the session so that you can actually implement what it is you're learning here today. So without further ado, let's get started. And again, in the chat, feel free to let me know where you're viewing this session from today. I know most of the people that are attending are from the UK, but as we can see, Linda's from Holland. It's always nice that there's some spread across Europe. And I do want to add, I've had a lot of people from the US who are not happy with me because I'm putting these sessions on in the UK morning, and obviously that's just way too late for them to attend them. So any US people that are watching the recording of this after, I am going to start putting on sessions, live sessions that are at a much better time for you guys across the pond as well. So leave it with me. I've had quite a few of you complain about it, so I'm going to make sure that we cater for you guys as well, and you can get a live session with me, which will be kind of US morning time before your working days kick off, hopefully. So let's talk about morph. What is morph? And first of all, I want to talk about what morph isn't. So morph isn't this little plasticine or clay guy that you see below me. Now, this might just be an English reference. I'm not sure if anyone from Holland or Algeria, as Bilal has just chimed in, will know this reference. But here in the UK, we had a TV show when I was very young, which was all about arts and crafts. And the main character was this guy called Morph. Now, I had a really strange realization yesterday when I rehearsed this session. I actually realized that I used to watch this guy on telly every day religiously when I was a child. And that probably led me to becoming a creative. And now that I'm an adult, and as you can see, very follically challenged, I had a realization that I am Morph. I've actually become this guy without even knowing, through osmosis. So that's a little bit worrying, but I'm sure my psychologist can help me work through that. So that's what morph isn't. And of course, morph isn't the PowerPoint, the Mighty Morphing Power Rangers that you see on the screen. Another show that I kind of grew up with and is still around today and is still absolutely awful in every single way. But by the end of today's session, my hope is that all of you will become Mighty Morphing PowerPoint Rangers. There we go. Do you like that reference? Mighty Morphing PowerPoint Rangers. And you can decide which one of those characters you're going to be. They are a handsome bunch, aren't they? Although not as handsome as the audience I've got here today, I'm sure. So what is PowerPoint Morph? Let's break it down. Let's start really simple. I'm going to demonstrate to you what morph is by using this little diamond shape that you can see below the title on the left-hand side of the screen. So let's imagine this is slide 1. I'm going to hit the right arrow on my keyboard here to move to slide 2. And as you can see, that diamond shape moves across the screen. It gets a little bit larger and it rotates as well. Now, if I just go back to slide 1, I'm going to press the left arrow on my keyboard. It moves magically back. So it looks like a really advanced animation to make that happen. It's actually not. It's one button, the morph transition. And what I've done here is I've created this slide. This is slide 1. I've then duplicated this slide, moved the diamond over to the right, changed the rotation, changed the size, and then I've clicked the morph transition, and PowerPoint has done the rest for me. It's as simple as that. So that's what the morph transition is. It is one button that you press between slides and it will move objects into their new position for you. You don't have to draw a guide as to where you want it to travel. It's not an advanced kind of animation feature that will take you days and days to learn. It is one button, but there is a process behind it that you really need to know in order to create the kind of stuff that I'm going to show you now. So let's have a look at some really amazing examples of morph. This is a presentation we did for a company that makes batteries here in the UK, and we realized that batteries bring the home to life. So we created this home with lots of different panels and images, and we used the morph transition to get the home to kind of fly apart and move our audience into the different rooms. So this is playing on a loop now. You can see we go into the living room. When we come back, all of those different pieces of the house slide back together. So again, all we've done there is we've created slide 1, which is the house with all the pieces here. And then we've created slide 2, where we've moved all of the objects into different positions. And then we've hit the morph transition. It's literally that simple. So another example is one that I showed on the last LinkedIn session I did. Here's slide 1 and here's slide 2. So we'll see that again. We're looking at the Earth from space, and then we zoom into the spaceship. So the spaceship was always there on slide 1, but it was so big we couldn't see it. And then on slide 2, we just make it smaller and bring it into view. Really, really clever use of the morph feature. And using the morph feature at the beginning of a presentation like this is an amazing way to hook your audience's attention. You'll see it here as well when we zoom out of the rear view mirror of a car into the back seat of this really fancy looking electric car. And then we zoom into the dashboard. There's some content here that plays out. And this is where the whole presentation played out. So here's slide 1. Here's slide 2, and then we go to slide 3. This is all just duplicating slides and moving content into different positions, and then hitting the morph transition. Okay, now I know I make that sound very easy, and you're probably looking at these thinking, wow, I would never be able to do that. The thing I want to say about the examples I'm showing you here is our team of designers have built these. So they are amazing at building the imagery and the graphics that go along with them. But having said that, it is very easy for anyone these days to find imagery and graphics that are mostly free on the internet. You can even find a lot of stuff directly inside PowerPoint as well. So if you know where to go, you can find your own imagery and you can do exactly the same kind of stuff that we've done here. We're not trying to get you to become presentation designers, but with the knowledge I'm going to give you in the rest of the session, you will be able to create stuff that's very close to what you see here. And if you've got a designer on hand that can polish the graphics even more, then that's even better. So that's kind of an introduction as to what the morph feature is. And again, if you want to see any more amazing examples of that, just have a look at our website after this session, jump onto our portfolio, and you'll see tons and tons of presentations with the morph feature. PowerPoint presentations, I should say. Obviously, Prezi is very, very different. So let's go through the 4 steps. What are those 4 steps that you really, really need to know in order to master the morph transition? And I said they are easy. Everything I teach people, I consider is very, very easy. It just needs kind of a bit of repetition to get through. I never really try and train anyone on super, super advanced stuff. Me and my team always keep things very, very simple because let's face it, all of our clients are not presentation designers. You guys don't have huge amounts of time. You want to learn this feature and you want to implement it straight away. So these are the steps that will help you do that. So I'm going to go into edit mode in a second as well and run through these steps with you on this basic example. And then we're going to build up from there and get a little bit more advanced and show you some different ways that you can actually use the morph transition. So step number one, as you'll see on the screen there, is to insert your objects onto a slide. So here I've used simple shapes, but it might be imagery, it could be video, it could just be text. It really doesn't matter. Insert your content onto your slide. Step two is to duplicate the slide. Step three is to move the objects into a different position. And then step four is to select that morph transition from the transitions tab that I'll show you in a second. So let's actually do that now. So if any of you are following along with the downloadable file that I sent you yesterday, then you can go into edit mode and you can copy what I'm doing, or for the others who would prefer to just watch and take notes, that's absolutely fine. These are the steps that we're going to go through. So number one, insert objects onto slide. Well, we've already done that. We've got this square, white square here that I've rotated around, and we've got this target area square here on the right hand side. I'm going to get this white square to move into the target area. Okay, so step one is done. We've inserted our objects. Now step two, we're going to duplicate the slide. So you can either do that by right clicking and choosing duplicate slide, or if you're like me, you can use a keyboard shortcut and press Control D on your keyboard, and that will duplicate your slide as well. Now that we've duplicated the slide, we do step three, and that's move the objects into a different position. So I'm going to grab this white square, I'm going to move it over to the target area, but I'm going to rotate it around, and I'm actually going to get it to perfectly fit inside the target area. And just for a bit of extra kind of wow factor, although this is just a square moving to a position, I'm going to change the color of it as well. Let's make it a nice pink. You can use any color you want or do anything you like to it, but you have to make changes to that same shape. Now, step four, select the morph transition. So up here in the transitions tab, hopefully the second transition, or I should say the first really, because the very first one is no transition, so none. So the first one here is morph. If you click on morph, you'll then get a little demo of that square moving across. But if we just go into present mode, you will see very quickly, I'm just going to make sure I've got the right screen on. Yes, I do. Here we go. So if you hit the right arrow from here to move from this slide to the next, oh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Here we go. There we go. You see the square move across. And if I hit the left arrow to go backwards, the morph transition kicks in again. Now, that's a really, really basic example, but in a nutshell, all of those really advanced examples I showed you that my team created, so the house flying apart, the spaceship that you zoomed into, the electric car that we came into, all of it is using this process. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps is all it takes. It's just a case, of course, that we've got a lot more time than most people to think about what graphics are we going to use, how are we going to create those graphics, or where will we get them from, and then how can we put them into PowerPoint in the right way. We've got a bit more time than most people to do that, but the process is exactly the same. So step 1, 2, 3, and 4 gives you this kind of effect. Okay, but let's take it a step further because that's way too basic. Let's have a think about how we could actually use this in a live presentation scenario. Now I'm going to go into edit mode here again. Excuse me. Now, for most people on this call, I would imagine that you all have like a company deck, like a company overview deck that introduces the company, who you are, what you do, your history, and so on. And some of you might have a timeline. Now, a timeline is a really, really great kind of design element to use the PowerPoint Morph feature with. So I've created a really basic one here on slide 14 of the training deck that I sent through to you. And if I just scroll over to the right-hand side, you'll see that the timeline I've made, it actually just bleeds off the edge of the slide. So I've got 1970, 1980 and 1990, and they bleed off the edge of the slide. Now that isn't a mistake. I've done that on purpose because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a timeline that slides along the screen, and each of those decades become highlighted as we go through. I'm going to use the same 4 steps. So here's how I would do it. First of all, insert our objects. That's step 1. Well, we've done that. We've got the timeline there. So I'm going to duplicate the slide. That's step 2. And then I'm going to move things around. So let's just select our timeline and our dates. And let's move them a bit further along. So into the center of the screen. And I'm going to make 1970 nice and big and move it up. And I'm going to make the image for 1970 nice and big. Now, please don't pull me up on the fact that we didn't have IMAX in 1970. I know that. I just pulled this together really quickly. But yeah, technically I should change the image I'm using. So I'm going to do something like that. Then I'm just going to carry on with that same process. I'm going to duplicate the slide again. And then I'm going to move everything along a second time. Like so. There we go. And now I'll do the same with 1980. I won't worry too much about getting exactly the same position or exactly the same font size, but obviously in a real scenario, you probably would want to make sure that you're being consistent. And what I can do here as well is I can bring the 1970 information back down in size because we've talked about that. And now we're focusing on 1980. There we go, you get the idea. And obviously the last step would be to do the same thing for 1990. I won't do that. I won't spend time doing that now because you get the idea. So we would do the same for 1990. And if your company timeline has, I don't know, 10 decades on it, then you can do exactly the same thing for all of these. Now, if I hold the Shift key down and select all of these timeline slides, I'm going to then click on the Morph option at the top of the screen again. Gives us our little preview, but let's look at this in present mode. And hopefully what you'll see is a really impressive looking animated timeline. Now, the great thing about this, as I click through it, it really gives the audience the impression that they're only on one slide. They're only looking at one slide. And that's because the background doesn't change. The title doesn't change, the subtitle doesn't change. All that's changing is the timeline information. So the audience is completely oblivious to the fact that they are moving through multiple slides. Only you know that as the presenter, but it looks absolutely fantastic. And we've got some much better examples of these. Again, you'll see them on our portfolio. This is just a very, very quick example that I've created and I use in all of my PowerPoint training. But you can really go to town with this. Obviously, put this in your own company's brand, change the shapes, use different graphics, add more content. It's entirely up to you what you do. But the process is, again, exactly the same. Add your content, duplicate slide, move your content, duplicate slide, and keep going with that until eventually you select all the slides and you hit the morph transition. So Eon has said, this is great. Thank you very much. Really, really glad that you're enjoying this LinkedIn event so far. I just love this feature. When this feature was first launched, I nearly missed a flight because I was in an airport in Edinburgh, and I was flying back on a Friday night to my hometown of Bristol, and I was playing around with this feature, and I actually had lots of different Star Wars spaceships on a slide, and I was making them go large and small. Basically, I was doing a Star Wars timeline because I'm such a nerd. Bikes and Star Wars, that's what I'm about, and PowerPoint. And I literally nearly missed my flight because I was so into it. And I was that annoying person that was the last one to get on the plane whilst everyone was waiting to take off. So this is without a doubt, I think, still, even though it's been out for a few years, it's still one of the strongest PowerPoint features that once you master can really help take your presentations to the next level. So I want to show you a couple of other examples before we just open up for general Q&A and then start to wrap the session up. This is something that we do an awful lot. So quite often our clients will send us content, and on their slides will be just horrible looking slides, horrible looking charts and graphs. I know I've got some clients on the call today, and they will fully admit that yes, this is them. They will send us horrible looking data and charts, and that's fine because it's our job to make it look much better. So what we tend to do is strip the content down, strip the data back to like its essence. What do people really need to see? And anything else we just get rid of. And we create charts that look like this. So this is literally just made out of shapes in PowerPoint. These are rectangles, these are lines, these are separate bits of text. You know, it's all just made up of shapes inside PowerPoint. It doesn't take that long to do at all. And once you've made one, you can copy and paste it, make some slight changes, and just keep going like that. Now, the beauty of doing this, of course, is that we can now morph the details of this chart. So I'm going to follow those steps again. Step one, add content. We've done that. Let's duplicate the slide. Now let's move some content. So let's talk about 1970 and let's bring that up a bit. Let's duplicate that slide and let's bring 1980 up a bit. And this is just so that as I'm presenting this data, I can actually talk about the different decades one at a time without just showing my audience all of the information before I've even spoken about it. So really, really simply, I've just duplicated the slide loads of times, hold the shift key, select all the slides, hit the morph transition, and away we go. And this is going to look really, really lovely now. So if I click onto the slide here, so let's talk about 1970, and that slightly raises up as I'm talking about it. And what about 1980? We saw a slight increase in the data, and 1990, another big increase. And then in 2000, we had a huge increase, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. Now, there's lots of other things that you could do with this. You could change the color of the other columns there so that they're slightly faded out and not so in focus. And then when they move, they turn into that nice bright pink color. You know, there's no right or wrong. Have a play around with this and really just see what works for you. But in terms of presenting data, for me, I like my data to move and animate as I'm talking about each point. And this is a great way to do that. Quick mention in the comments, Eon has asked, will we be posting a recording? So yes, LinkedIn will provide the recording automatically once the session is done. I think it takes an hour or two for that to be processed. So that will be there ready and available for you if you missed the start of this. So no problem at all. Someone else has just added, I say someone else because it just says LinkedIn user. I don't have a name. So yes, LinkedIn user has just asked, would you add timing to these? That is a really good question. To be honest, no, I wouldn't add timing. I would just leave it as the default timing. So to show you exactly what I mean, if I just go into edit mode here, when you click on the morph transition, over on the right hand side of the screen, and I may need to just move my PowerPoint here. There we go. Over on the right hand side of the screen, just on the top right here, you can see there is a duration column. And by default, that is set to 2 seconds. Now, I tend to leave it as 2 seconds because I think sometimes it can a transition can look a bit too quick, but you can play around with it. Maybe the content and the subject that you're presenting about requires a bit of a slower approach, so maybe slow it down. It's entirely up to you, but I tend to stick to the default. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, and they've just told me who they are. It's you, Boo. Thank you very much. I hope you're well. Really good that you could make it to the live session. Okay, so we've done some really interesting stuff so far. We started really basic and we moved one shape. Then we created a timeline. Now we've created an animated chart. And I just want to add as well, to animate the chart in the way we did there would probably be pretty straightforward to do, but it can be quite tedious as well. So that's why sometimes I do kind of rely on the morph feature more than the animation feature, because for me, I just think it's much simpler, duplicating content, moving it, hitting the morph button. For me, it's just a quicker way of doing it. So some of the stuff I show you might still be possible with the animation tool. If you're really comfortable with that, then sometimes it can be worth sticking with that. But for me, I think this is a huge time saver for most PowerPoint users. Okay, Boo's just added, not sure why it's not showing her name. I don't know either. Unfortunately, I'm not a LinkedIn expert at all, even though you see me on LinkedIn all the time ranting about presentations. But hey, we know who you are now, so it's all good. Right, we're going to do something a little bit more advanced now before we start to wrap the session up. So this is where we can get a lot more visual with PowerPoint. So I've created a scene on this slide. We've got a PowerPoint superhero here. And I want to add that, because someone pulled me up on this recently, they are, yes, they are a man. And yes, I will be adding a female PowerPoint superhero very soon. So before anyone pulls me up on this in the chat, I will add a female superhero as well. I promise. So I've made this scene here out of lots and lots of different shapes. I've got grass and trees. I've got these buildings in the background. I've got clouds and stars, and the blue sky in the background is just a simple shape. Now I'm going to Control Z to put all of that back where it was. But if I just zoom out a little bit from this slide, you'll also see lots of other content that isn't in the visible space of the slide right now. And you'll see why. So I've got another version of the superhero over here on the right in a slightly different pose. I've got some space backgrounds at the top, and then I've got this meteorite image just floating around here in the top left. Now, none of that is visible to the audience straight away, okay? All the audience is going to see at the very start is this. So we're going to create a little story where a meteorite is heading for Earth, and the PowerPoint superhero saves the day and catches the meteorite. Really, really simple, because we've got all of the elements in place now. So what I'm going to do is follow those steps again. Duplicate. I've placed all of my content, so I'm going to go to step 2, duplicate the slide. And now I'm going to change some things. So the thing I'm going to change first of all is the color of the buildings. So I'm going to go to the color options here. I'll change them to like a sort of a dark red color. I'm going to change the color of the sky as well to more of a sort of orangey color, like so. Let's move those buildings back up a bit. And then I'm going to grab that meteorite image and I'm just going to bring that onto the screen, because of course, if a meteorite was heading for Earth, the sky would probably turn very, very red indeed. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing again, duplicate the slide, but this time I'm going to move all of these objects, or most of these objects, down out of the visible space. So same for the sky background and the clouds. Let's just move all of those down and out of the way. Then I'm going to move one of the space backgrounds down so it fills the slide. I'll make the meteor nice and big. And then remember over here on the right, we had another superhero. I'm going to move him onto the slide like so, and he's going to be catching the meteorite. So maybe I need to just make that meteorite a little bit bigger. I'll try not to be too much of a perfectionist, he says as he continues to muck around with the sizing. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to hold Shift, select the slides, go to transitions, click on morph, and we get the preview. But let's look at this for real in present mode. Here we go. So here's the start of our story. It's a nice day on planet Earth. The PowerPoint superhero is making sure everything's okay. Hit the right arrow. There's a meteorite heading for Earth. Sky turns red. Very scary scene. Hit the right arrow again. Our superhero flies up into space to catch the meteorite and save the day. So I know that's a really silly example, but it just shows you that having the right imagery and knowing what it is that you actually want to build is a really, really important thing. I think I mentioned this in pretty much every training session I ever do, whether it's about the Morph feature or the Zoom feature or just PowerPoint in general. But I always tell people, before you go anywhere near your presentation software, grab one of these things, a pen and a pad, and actually storyboard what it is you're going to create. Because if you don't know what it is you want to create in PowerPoint, it's going to be even harder to get something that looks amazing. And you don't have to be a creative to storyboard. Just draw a few little squares on a piece of paper and just sketch it out. It really doesn't matter. No one's ever going to see it, but at least it gets it set in your mind. It gives you a blueprint as to what you're going to create. So Boo said that's a brilliant example. Thank you very much. I do need to change the example because I use that all the time. I think people are getting fed up with that one these days. But hopefully the other examples I've shown you have been really useful as well. And what I would love to happen at the end of this session is all of you go away from this now. You open up one of your presentations, maybe your company presentation or whatever it may be, and you look at it and you go, wow, this could be so much better. And I'm hoping that's the case. And I want to add as well, if that happens for you, but maybe you're still a little bit unsure as to, whether the Morph feature could be used in certain areas, just drop me a direct message through LinkedIn, send me a picture of the slides or even send me the presentation itself, and I'll help you out as much as I can. So just want to go through those basics again, the Morph basics, the 4 steps. Always plan on paper first, of course, but then insert your objects onto a slide. Step 1. Step 2, duplicate the slide. Step 3, move the objects into a different position. And then step 4, select the morph transition between the slides, and away you go. It's really that simple. And I'm hoping that I have kind of got rid of some of the difficulties that you might have faced using Morph. Or what I find quite often is people look at the Morph transition or they see people using it and it looks really advanced. Because it looks so good, people think, I'm never going to be able to do that. So I'm hoping I've kind of got rid of that belief for you today as well, and that you do feel now kind of brave enough to go and actually start exploring the Morph transition. And fingers crossed, most of you were on the first session as well, when I talked about the Zoom feature. If you can combine the Zoom feature and the Morph transition, oh my God, you're going to be off to the races. Your presentations are going to look absolutely insanely good. And I will be so happy if that happens. So please let me know. Like I said, I don't just want to deliver these LinkedIn sessions and then never speak to you guys again. So if you ever need any support or guidance, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll always reply to you as quickly as I can if I'm not delivering training sessions or in meetings. So please use me as a resource. That's what I'm here for. And of course, on the flip side of that, if any of you guys do think to yourself, well, I love it, but I don't have time to do it, I've got some budget, let's get in touch with Russell and his team. then that's exactly what we do. We have a small team of 5 people here in the UK and also overseas, and we are experts at this PowerPoint, Prezi, design, training your teams on how to get more out of PowerPoint and things like that. So do reach out if you feel like actually getting us on board as a presentation partner would be a good way to go. So I'm going to start to wrap the session up now. I will stick around for a few minutes. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to just drop them into the chat, and I will answer those whilst we are all still here on the call. But I hope you found it useful. Just let me know with a thumbs up or a thumbs down in the chat, or a 1 to 10 on how useful you found it. 10 being this is the best LinkedIn Live you've ever seen, and 1 being meh, whatever. Let me know in the chat, because it's always really, really good to see. So Linda, thank you very much for being here again. I know you were crying out for me to do some online training for a long time. Hopefully this is kind of fulfilling that itch that you had. I'll keep doing more and more of these, and thank you for supporting me and commenting on all of my posts as well. I really appreciate it. Booze said, sorry, missed your answer to my question. Oh, LinkedIn logged you out. Oh dear. Let's have a look at what your question was again. 1 second. I'm just going to scroll back up to see that. Oh, you asked Boo if we would add timing to the morph transitions. My answer to that was no. I wouldn't add timing to morph transitions. The reason for it is because I think the default timing that it uses is 2 seconds, and I think that's more than enough. 2 seconds is a really nice amount of time to transition from one slide to the next. There is a timing option on the top right-hand corner of the transitions screen, and you can adjust it there to make it quicker or slower. So play around with it if you feel like you need to, but I've always felt like the default timings are enough. There is another option in that top right, which enables this PowerPoint to automatically transition without you having to click. So sometimes that's a useful one as well. So Booz also said, missed the, let's have a look. I missed the Zoom session. Can I get a copy of that session? It should be available online on LinkedIn. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll find it straight after this session, and I'll tag you in it in the comments below, so that you've got that there as well. So no worries there at all. Bilal, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Eon said this is awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate that as well. Thank you very much. And anyone else who's maybe not chimed in on the comments, but I can see a few people are actually logged in and watching. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to wrap this up now. If any of you have any subject to do with PowerPoint or Prezi or presenting in general that you would love to see on a LinkedIn Live from me, please let me know, and I will definitely set that up. I've got a few ideas as to what I'm going to do over the next few months through the summer with our LinkedIn Live sessions, but I'm always really keen to hear from people who need our support. So do let me know. But apart from that, I'm going to let you guys get back to the real world. Do reach out to me if you need any further help or support. And thank you again for taking time out of your day to come and listen to me. I am humbled every time I run a training session and people come and listen to me. So I really, really appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much. And I will see you on LinkedIn in the next session. So take care. Have a great day. Have a great week. I hope the sun is shining for you, and I will see you soon. All the best.